So today we are continuing to read this Masonic book that's over 120 years old. And today we're going to be taking a look at the idea of becoming a master, or really becoming the perfect master. Now, last week we took a look at how to become God. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it. You don't have to have seen it to be able to know what's going on in this video, but it would be helpful. I'll link at the very end of this video a whole playlist to all the different videos in this series. They're very good. I highly recommend them. But we're going to be taking a look at how to become a perfect master from this old, very old Masonic book. And we're also, as usual, going to be comparing it and contrasting it, showing the differences between it and Hyperianism. So let's just start. Now, what does it mean to be a perfect master? Now, like I said, last week we talked about attaining divinity. And I want to remind you what that means. So just as a reminder, it says here, but transcending these by self-conquest and becoming perfect in humanity, man attains divinity. In other words, he becomes Christos. This is the meaning, aim, and consummation of human evolution. And this philosophy defines the only process by which it may be attained. The perfect man is Christ, and Christ is God. This is the birthright and destiny of every human soul. So, according to this book, once humanity perfects itself, it becomes Christos, it becomes divine, it becomes God. And so you see that, Christ and all that is used as an allegory. Christ isn't someone that is worshipped, Christ is what one becomes. And so what we're going to see is that this idea of the perfect master is what one does, when one attains divinity, how one operates and behaves in the world. And I want to say right off the bat that there is a lot of gendered, patriarchal language in this, which I do not care for. But we will, you guys know my view on that. Definitely very against that sort of thing. But let's continue and take a look at this and contrast it and understand. We're going to see this idea of the perfect master is really the idea of, like in Hyperianism, we could talk about this in terms of hyper awareness, but we'll get to this in a moment. But the perfect master in Freemasonry is not hyper awareness. I'm just trying to say that if we were to choose an idea in Hyperianism, we would choose this idea. But let's get a better idea of what's going on here. So it is thus that man must work out his own salvation. The consummation of initiation is the perfect master, the Christos. For these are the same. They are the goal, the perfect consummation of human evolution. So once again, and it says here, all real initiation is internal. It's internal, not external. The outer ceremony, any ceremonies or ritual are done. They're just symbolism, and it just illustrates and symbolizes an inward change. In other words, all the symbols, all the ceremonies, all the rituals, they don't mean anything in themselves. They're only symbols of an internal change. Kind of like when you have a birthday. A birthday is a symbol of getting a year older. Blowing out candles isn't magic. Blowing out candles doesn't make you a year older. Blowing out candles symbolizes that you're getting a year older. So all the different ceremonies, all the different rituals, all the different symbols, they don't do anything. They are symbols of an internal process. So the outer ceremony is dead and useless only so far as it symbolizes and illustrates and thereby makes clear the inward change. The ceremony instructs, but it cannot transform. To transform means to regenerate. And this comes, and I love this. I ended the last video. If you watch the last video, we ended here. And I love this part. And this comes by trial, by effort, by self-conquest. And so this is how one becomes, and this is their point here. This is how one becomes divine. This is how one becomes a perfect master. Not by some ceremony, not by some ritual, not by believing in some law of attraction, not in letting the universe guide you. None of that. How does one do it? By trial, by effort, by self-conquest, by sorrow, disappointment, failure, and a daily renewal of the conflict. It is thus that man must work out his own salvation. This means if you want to reach that higher level, you have to go through trial and effort and struggle. Just like if you want to be a great pianist or a great guitarist, whatever it is, you have to practice every single day. You have to put in effort. You have to struggle. You have to fail. You have to, you feel disappointed, then feel elated when you overcome certain things. It's this whole trial that you have to go through to where you finally are able to, become a master pianist or a master guitarist, not through just believing it, not through just, sorry, let me bring this up here. Not through just believing that it's true, not by worshiping some god and praying. If you just go, dear Jesus, please make me a great guitarist, you're not going to be a great guitarist. You have to pray. If you don't practice, you're actually going to have to practice. So you just believe in the law of attraction or whatever. The point is you have to put in effort. You have to put in struggle. You have to put in, the blood, sweat, and tears that it takes to do these things. So the idea of a perfect master is sort of like, think of a guitarist. There's a guitarist, someone who's learning to play the guitar. And then there's a master guitarist. So you can see the difference. There's someone maybe who just picked up a guitar and, is just beginning to learn. They make a lot of mistakes. They make a lot of failures. But if they keep going and going, they'll eventually become a master guitarist. They can play with effort and ease. Almost anything you throw at them, they can do. So the idea of the perfect master is like you have mastered existence. You have mastered life. You've mastered life. So just like you can be someone who's just starting to play the guitar or a master guitarist, you can have someone who's just sort of kind of barely gets what life is about and someone who has mastered life. That's the idea of the perfect master. As a master guitarist is to, say, a beginner guitarist, the perfect master is, it's a mastery of life rather than the mastery of a guitar or a mastery of dance or a mastery of whatever. It's just a mastery of life itself. So, and it is attained by struggle. Sorry, just some of the alerts are a little, hold on, where was I? Okay, so the consummation of initiation is the perfect master, the Christos, for these are the same. So for Masonry, Christ is an idea. It's not an actual person. And they say this many times in this book. Christ is a symbol. It's not, like a person to be worshipped. It's a symbol of what you can become. They are the goal, the perfect consummation of human evolution. Now, with this idea of human evolution, and in the light of modern science, what is it to be a master? Not a mythical master, not one so holy, so divine, so incomprehensible as to be the object of blind worship alone, and impossible to be imitated, not an idol or a fetish, but one indeed to reverence, to love, and above all, approach and imitate, an elder brother, a compassionate teacher, a helper of the human race. And see, I really love this. Again, I don't like the gendered language, he, him, brother, and I wouldn't use the word master. I don't like the word master at all. Definitely not at all. It's distasteful. But the main idea that's getting across here, someone who has achieved a very high level of awareness, who is at that point divine, if you want to use that term. I try and stay away from religious language. So in Hyperianism, we can talk about divinity and stuff, but it's all about levels of consciousness, reaching just a godlike level of consciousness. And in Hyperianism, that is hyper-awareness, where it's the triadic consciousness. You have the avatar, monadic, and absolute perspectives. You have mastered these three conscious perspectives and integrated them into hyper-awareness. So, but this person is not one who is an object to be you should not blindly worship this person. And it's not someone that you could never imitate. It's not an idol or a fetish. See, that's the idea of mainstream Christianity, idea of Jesus Christ, right? Like, wow, Christ is so divine and we should all worship Christ, even though we know that we could never be like Christ. And that's the funny thing is they always say, be like Jesus, be like Jesus, be like Jesus. But to really, and this is so, because for those who don't know, I grew up in a strict Christian household. I have RTS, religious trauma syndrome. And I'm sure you've always heard, be like Jesus, be like Jesus. Actually being like Jesus is blasphemy. If you go, oh yeah, sure, I'll be like Jesus, I'll be God. Whoa, hold on. Well, don't be too much like Jesus. Anyway. Lucifer had a better idea of the right way to go when he said knowledge will allow one to be like God. So anyway, just kind of funny. So the idea is not someone to blindly worship, but rather, one that should respect and love, but one that someone should approach and imitate, a compassionate teacher, a helper, and I love that, a helper of the human race. I love that a lot, a helper of the human race. Now, I would put some caveats, just like I don't like the gendered language like brother, and I don't like the word master. One thing that I really want to put out there with regard to, yes, they should be looked at as teachers, right? Helper of the human race. And I like the idea of teacher. That's my goal, to teach. And what does a good teacher want? The best teacher is one that wants the student to surpass them. A bad teacher is one that's like, oh, I'm so smart. I'm much smarter than you. You could never be as smart as me. And, kind of lord it over everyone about how smart they are and how they're smarter than everyone else. And I'm sure you've noticed some teachers like that who are terrible teachers, and they're just in it for purely selfish reasons. They like to hear themselves talk a bunch of bullshit. The good teachers, the best teachers, are ones who want the students to surpass them. And that's what I want. I want people to please, yes, like please go higher than me, go beyond me, go. I don't know how to get across a better way, in that when you get to, it's like on Maslow's hierarchy. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy, what we're talking about is the highest level. So Maslow has an extended hierarchy. Usually Maslow's hierarchy ends at self-actualization, but he added another level called transcendence. And so this is the highest level of Maslow's hierarchy. Is transcendence is when one reaches transcendence, one is no longer just actualizing themselves, but they are working on actualizing, helping others to actualize as well. And I want to really show you, because this idea of the perfect master and Maslow's level of transcendence and hyper-awareness are very similar. Hyper-awareness is more than all these things, but it's sort of in the same ballpark. And I just want to, because when you look at sort of these mystical things like Freemasonry and this mystical idea about being divine and a perfect master and all that, really what this is it's psychology. And I'm going to read to you a quote by Maslow because it's very pertinent to this. And this is actually, I'm in the middle of writing a new book. And so I'm going to bring up a quote that I'm using in the book that I'm writing. This is in a section of my book talking about, how we want a new world. Let me find this real quick because it's very important. And I just want to show like how these ideas connect with psychology, because, when you are, hold on right here. When you are wanting to reach a higher level of awareness, I talk about important elements for doing that. You need metacognition, concept networking, and then phenomenological experience. You need these things to be able to reach hyper-awareness. And concept networking is being able to see how apparently disparate subjects connect together. So I just want to show how something like the idea of the perfect master in Freemasonry and an idea in psychology by Maslow are very, very similar and connect, and how Hyperianism sort of incorporates those ideas and many, many, many more ideas within it. So let me read this to you. This is a quote by Maslow. Self-actualizing people, those who have come to a high level of maturation, health, and self-fulfillment, have so much to teach us that sometimes they seem almost like a different breed of human beings. But because it is so new, the exploration of the highest reaches of human nature and of its ultimate possibilities and aspirations is a difficult and tortuous task. And I really love this quote, and I think it fits in really well of kind of illustrating the idea of concept networking. So you see Maslow, who is a psychologist, very, very famous, is simply discussing this idea that's essentially the same idea that's being discussed here, just put in words of, psychology versus more mystical. And that's the thing with Hyperianism, is we want these things to be as easy to understand as possible, so that the world, we want the world to be able to reach, we want to shout these things from the rooftops. We want everyone to evolve, everyone to have access to this information, everyone to be able to grow, learn, as much as they possibly can. We don't want any kind of gatekeeping or, hiding things, like none of that bullshit. We want a better world, and a better world entails people evolving. So that's the thing I think that I want to get across, is that a good teacher will be one who wants their students to surpass them. So because I think a lot of people who get into this sort of thing, people will join secret societies, or like, oh, I'm going to join OTO or whatever. And they get really like, oh, well, I'm at level, 27 grand, whatever. And yeah, a lot of people have a lot of, you know what I mean, right? The idea is to help other people. You want to self-actualize, you want to help other people, and there's nothing wrong with being proud of your achievements. You should be proud of your achievements, and there's nothing wrong with getting a title or a badge or whatever to represent what you have earned. That's great. People should be rewarded for what they earn and whatnot. But we want to just always have the main idea in mind, that it's about helping other people and helping ourselves as well. So if we want to self-actualize and help others self-actualize as well. That's the highest level of Maslow's hierarchy, and what we need to build a new world. And just, I know I'm going way off track, but in Hyperianism, we want a teleocracy. And in a teleocracy, which is a purpose-driven world, where we want to foster well-being for every individual in the collective, when you have a society that is geared towards helping people reach transcendence, it's a self-updating and self-reinforcing system. Because as more and more people reach the level, so basically you want to build a society that gives people the resources, the time, the education, everything they need to be able to reach that level of self-actualization and then ultimately transcendence. And then what happens is when people reach transcendence, that level entails helping others self-actualize. So what happens is you have a society that helps people reach transcendence. Then when those people reach transcendence, they help others actualize, which increases the level of actualized and transcendent individuals, which in turn creates a better society. Because when people self-actualize, they're becoming the best versions of themselves they can possibly be, which means they're becoming fantastic doctors or fantastic artists or fantastic computer coders or fantastic whatever. Fantastic, people dealing with like economics in the political sphere, structuring society. And then so these individuals will be able to help create an even better world. And so you have this great feedback loop where you have people helping create a better world. That better world makes better initial conditions, which gives rise to people becoming better versions of themselves, meaning even more people can self-actualize. More self-actualized people mean an even better society, and even better society means an even more self-actualized people, and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until you have this, self-reinforcing system that is just self-bettering itself over and over and over. And it's ridiculous that humanity hasn't understood this, and they're just like really focused on, how can we raise the GDP? Fuck that. When you have your citizens the best they can possibly be, the result is that you will have a better system and a better world and a better society, and that in turn gives better citizens, better world, better citizens, better world, better citizens, increasing. And instead we have the world that does the exact opposite. They don't give a shit about any of that. They just want money. And they have a school system that's modeled on the Prussian model of the school system, which is just a factory model, which just wants to churn out workers who don't question and workers and soldiers and consumers. That's all they want. Workers, soldiers, consumers. Workers, soldiers, and consumers who don't question. And then you just have the worst possible system. Anyway, let's continue with today's topic. But it is relevant because this is what someone who has attained that level does. So that would be what a perfect master would do. I don't really like saying perfect. You know, I don't honestly, I don't like the word master. And you know, I don't really like the word perfect either, because everyone is evolving. Even this, you know, the master is never going to be perfect. But the general spirit of what's being talked about, I like. Just don't like the, you know, brother, man, perfect master. Don't really care for it too much. But I think you can see. So let's continue. So this is someone who is the compassionate teacher, a helper of the human race. By contrast, struggle and daily conflict, the master has conquered self. Life after life, he has gathered experience. And see, this is really important too. This is not just relegated to this life. Life after life. This is why in Hyperianism we talk about relocalization, which most people know as reincarnation, but we like to step away from religious and mystical connotation. So we talk about relocalization, which is the localization of a non-local mind into a local reality. Allows you to experience this world. And you go through life after life, not because of karma or any kind of bullshit like that. It's about evolution. It's about learning and understanding and evolving. Life after life is you know, life is like a university. It's like a school. With every life you live, you're learning and evolving. It doesn't matter if you retain the memories or not. It does not matter. That evolution stays with you. Just like when you go to school, you don't remember every single day. You don't remember consciously all the days that you went to school and what happened. But the overall information has stayed with you. The ability to calculate mathematics, to you know, have a language, etc. Even though you don't remember the particulars of your school days, it has helped you grow and learn and evolve in a sort of similar way. Even though you don't remember consciously all your past lives, the overall, you know, it has still contributed overall to your evolution. So this is becoming a, you know, in their terms, a perfect master is something that takes lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And, you know, even Maslow talked about how new and rare this is and how hard and a struggle it is for people to get there. How, I forget what he estimated, what percentage of the population, it's very low estimation. But, you know, this is why Maslow talks about how hard and much of a struggle it is for people to get there, because it's this thing that takes life after life. Now, here's the thing. What Hyperianism does is it gives you the tools. It's almost like a cheat where you can get, because the reason why it takes life after life after life is because all these different ideas, all these lessons to be learned, they're not all in one place. They're scattered all over the place. Imagine that schools didn't exist, okay? Imagine schools didn't exist and you just were plopped down and you just kind of wandered around meeting people. And that's how you learn things. There wasn't any kind of school. You just learned by talking to people. You have to learn language. You have to learn history. You have to learn math. It's not going to be very good, right? And you know, how do you know if people are lying to you? How do you know if something really happened or didn't happen? And it's going to be really, really hard. But eventually, you know, you'll start to kind of know things. That's what it's like when you're going through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. There's no school for it. And you're just kind of learning these lessons randomly as you kind of stumble along blindly. And that's why it takes so long. Hyperianism is the school. Hyperianism gives you the tools. It's like, hey, here's everything you need. Here's everything you need with interstar actualization and psychology. Here's everything you need to know about ontology and mathematics. Here's everything you need to know about communities and a collective. Here's everything you need to know about having the mindset to be able to shape your reality and existence. Here's everything you need to know about achieving absolute consciousness and the monadic perspective and the avatar perspective. It's everything in one place, like a school. And that way you don't have to do lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. You can do it in one. You can do it in one. And this is, like really why it's so essential because we can have that's why we want to wake up the world and wake up humanity, because when we start having this happen on a global scale, we'll have a new world. Because when I talked about, again, Maslow, right, when people start reaching self-actualization and transcendence, you get that feedback loop, and everything just starts getting better and better and better, as long as it's done in the right way. We're in the right teleocratic framework and everything. So that's really, really important. And so that, we have to make sure that assholes who aren't, anyway, it has to be in the right framework. I don't want to get off topic. But that's the thing, right? So this is talking about lifetime after lifetime. And I just want to make it very clear that Hyperianism isn't about, telling you what to think or what to do. It's about, hey, here are all these tools, and you can use them to be able to reach this higher level, to reach hyper awareness. And you don't have to go through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So take advantage of that. Don't skip out and die and miss out on that. It's not even a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's a once in a lifetime's opportunity. So life after life he has gathered experience. Truly hath he been a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. He has assailed all problems, studied all sciences, exhausted all litanies, apprehended all philosophies, practiced all arts. See, I love this. This is great. This is great stuff. And contrast with the bullshit that New Age and mystical shit tries to sell you, even though, this is mystic masonry. They get some things right. But this particular thing is really good. Contrast that with New Age bullshit that's like the law of attraction. Just put pictures of what you want around the house and you'll get a new car. Or just believe that you're going to have that relationship that you want and it'll happen, or whatever it is. Just look at all this New Age and new religions and new spiritual systems that are popping up that are trying to tell you that the path to enlightenment, or whatever they call it, is easy. And all you got to do is blah, blah, blah. No, it's not easy. It's very difficult. You must, it says right here, assailed all problems, studied all sciences, exhausted all litanies, apprehended all philosophies, practiced all arts. This is not a just sit around and listen to a guided meditation at 523 hertz or whatever. That's not going to, no, this is hard work. This is reaching the next evolutionary step. And this is why in Hyperianism, we make it as easy as possible and have all these tools. So at every step, he has loved and helped humanity more and more, sought his own desires less and less, grown familiar thus with all the lower planes of life by sore trial, by bitter conflict, by frequent defeat, by hope deferred, almost despairing, he has last renounced self utterly, and so become dead to the world. This is the great renunciation, an infinite compassion for all that lives, takes possession of his soul, and an infinite peace settles within his spirit. Now, I just want to say real quick that, so this is very, very other focused, what's being talked about right now, like destroying the self, renouncing the self utterly, stepping away from one's own desires and thinking about helping humanity. So I just want to make it clear that in Hyperianism, it's about the self and other. Because in New Age philosophies and mystical traditions, they usually talk about service to self and service to other. And that one has to totally reject service to self and just be completely about service to other. Now, I want to make it clear. It's not just about other. It's about self and other. Now, that doesn't mean you want to be a selfish asshole and do something for yourself that irrationally impedes another. That kind of selfishness is not good. But you want to have, it's fine for you to have desires, I think is what I mean. You get into a lot of these philosophies and a lot of these systems where they make it that desire is like almost like it's a bad thing to have wants and desires or to have pride or any of these sorts of things. That's all fine. You can have desires. You can have pride. You can have these are you want to be an actualized version of yourself. You can take pride in that. That's hard shit. You earned that. Feel good about it. Have pride in that. Don't be an asshole. Don't lord it over everyone. Oh, I'm so much better than you. No, be a helper. Help people up. But there's nothing wrong with having your own desires. You know, you don't have to go be, you know, say like a wandering monk that only owns, you know, 2 pairs of sandals in a water bucket or something. No, you can have you can have a nice house and a nice car, for example, and still help humanity. Now, you don't want to be a fucking asshole and like, you know, the billionaires who could be helping people, but instead use their billions to fly to space. Meanwhile, people are starving. That's completely different. You see, it's a balance. You want to help. The better that you help yourself, the better you can help humanity. Again, it's a feedback loop. You don't want to deny one aspect of life, and denying yourself, you don't want to deny yourself. Now, you want to understand that reality is an interconnected community, and you want to help others. Absolutely. Be a helper of humanity. Help others grow. Help others learn. But you also help yourself too. You know, if like, let's say, for example, you want to take a vacation, well, you deserve that fucking vacation. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to feel guilty about it. And guess what? You're probably going to be able to help humanity a lot better afterwards because you'll feel refreshed. Or if you want to, you know, take an hour to play that video game, or, you know, whatever it is, or I think you get what I'm saying. So I want to make it clear that Hyperianism is not like the systems that tell you that you must deny the self and just be a servant of humanity. No, I mean, you want to serve yourself and you want to serve others. It's all interconnected. So I just want to make that clear because this leans a little more towards a rejection of the self. You don't want to reject the self. You want to understand there's different perspectives. That's why in Hyperianism, we talk about the triadic perspective of avatar, monadic, and absolute. The avatar perspective is you in this body, in this current lifetime. The monadic perspective is you as an eternal mind that has lived across many lifetimes and is eternal. And then the absolute perspective is us together as a collective, as an eternal collective, the one, the absolute. And you want to be able to switch between these different perspectives when it's appropriate and when it's best. When you want to enjoy life, you want to, you know, just really immerse yourself in eating that nice piece of cake and enjoy that, you want to be in the avatar perspective. You don't really want to be, you know, thinking about how life is a mathematical, like, you don't want to be thinking about some past life or something while you're eating the piece of cake. You want to be focused on how it tastes and how it makes you feel and how it's, you know, part of. So, yeah, there's not, basically, hey, if you want to have a piece of cake, have a piece of cake. Just don't eat so much cake that no one else can have cake. I think that is, everyone should have cake. Cake is not a lie. So, so this is the great renunciation and infinite compassion for all that lives. So yeah, you don't have to renounce yourself. And I know that they mean it differently than this, but I know that a lot of people could take it a certain way. And still, this is a little more other directed, whereas Hyperianism is about self and other. So this now is a quote. Let's see. Believe thou not that sitting in dark forests, in proud seclusion and apart from man, believe thou not that life on roots and plants that thirst assuaged with snow from the great range, believe thou not, O devotee, that this will lead thee to the goal of final liberation. So they're saying, don't believe that sitting in a dark forest, in seclusion, apart from humanity, is going to lead you to your goal. That's kind of what a lot of systems say, right? Like, oh, go meditate under a tree for 5 hours a day and you'll reach enlightenment. So they're basically saying, no, nothing wrong with meditating from time to time, but that's not the way. So they're saying, step out from sunlight into shade to make room for others. 'Tis from the bud of renunciation of the self that springs the sweet fruit of final liberation. I don't like the idea of renouncing the self. So I disagree with this. It's not about renouncing the self. It's realizing what the self is. You don't want to deny the self. You don't want to renounce the self. You want to realize that we are all selves together that make up a network of a self, an absolute self. You don't have to renounce the self. You don't have to. It's about understanding what it is, and realizing when to have that perspective and when to have a different perspective. So I want to make that clear. That's another big difference in Hyperianism. We aren't about renouncing the self. We're not about renouncing the ego either, let alone the self. You go to a lot of philosophies that are like, oh, you must renounce the ego. No. In Hyperianism, we do not renounce the ego. The ego is what allows you to be a conscious being with self-awareness. It is the center of your field of experience. We don't identify with the ego. That's very important. We don't identify with the ego, but we don't renounce it. We understand that it's a very powerful tool that we can use as a tool. So we don't renounce it, but we also don't identify with it. So that's even just talking about the ego. But with the self in general, no, we renouncing the self is not the way to go. It's about understanding what the self is. So it says the selfish devotee lives to no purpose. You don't have to renounce this. It's not like if you don't renounce the self, you're going to be selfish ipso facto. That's not what that means. That's not going to happen. You can not renounce the self. You can accept the self and not be selfish, because you realize that we are all selves in one interconnected self. And from that absolute perspective, helping you is also helping me, because we're all different perspectives of the absolute experiencing each other. So I think the main idea to grasp is it's not about self and it's not about other. It's about self and other. It's like if you have a coin, it's like trying to get rid of one of the sides. You don't want to do that. It's not about one side or the other. It's the whole coin. So this just kind of keeps going. The selfish devotee lives to no purpose. The man who does not go through his appointed work in life has lived in vain. And that part is true. The man who does not go through his appointed work in life has lived in vain. What that sort of means is that someone who hasn't done any sort of learning or growth in their life, it's kind of like a wasted life. You're here to learn, grow, have meaningful experiences, etc. If someone here just sits on their butt and watches Netflix 24/7, yeah, it's a wasted life. So shalt thou be in full accord with all that lives. Bear love to men as though they were thy brother, pupils, disciples of one teacher, the sons of one sweet mother. There's a lot I could say, but looking at the time, we should move on here. Compassion speaks and saith, can there be bliss when all that lives must suffer? Shalt thou be saved and hear the whole world cry? So this is essentially saying, compassion speaks and saith, can there be bliss when all that lives must suffer? Shalt thou be saved and hear the whole world cry? And this is I like this. This is actually cool. But it doesn't mean you have to renounce the self. Basically, it says, they're basically saying don't be selfish, but they're going too far. Yeah, you don't want to be selfish all the time, but you can take time. I think I've gotten it across, all right. But I like this quote. It says, can there be bliss when all that lives must suffer? And the billionaire oligarchy are perfect examples of the huge violation of this. Right? Basically, they're living it up while the rest of the world suffers. And what they're saying is, compassion speaks. When you are compassionate, can there be bliss when everything is suffering? No. Compassionate says no. That's why in a teleocratic world, we want to make sure that those who are in powerful leadership positions are compassionate and are caring. Because right now, the billionaire oligarchy, they don't give a shit. They are not compassionate in the least. So true compassion, can there be bliss? Can you realize a truly compassionate person isn't going to feel bliss when everything is suffering? And shalt thou be saved and hear the whole world cry? Can you be saved when the world is crying? Basically, are you truly saved when the rest of the world is crying? And not saved in like a, oh, Jesus saved me kind of way, but sort of, pulled away from the destruction and despair in the world. You can kind of look at the billionaire oligarchy. They're saved from, having to work to survive and deal with all the horrors that this world inflicts. But it's basically saying, this world is suffering, and even if you might be saved from the suffering, the truly compassionate one is still going to feel the suffering of the world and want to change it and transform it and help those who are suffering. And when you become hyper aware, that just happens automatically, because from the absolute perspective, you realize that we're all one. And so you realize that everyone else suffering is you suffering, and you don't want the different parts of you to suffer, because we're all in this together. So that just comes with it. Someone who is truly hyper aware understands that. Some people might claim to be, but if they don't exhibit that compassion, they're not, because that comes with it. When a true understanding comes with that. But says some modern agnostic, this is all beautiful, very fine indeed, but mere sentiment with no foundation in fact and no possible realization in the life of man. So they're talking basically saying, oh, this sounds very nice, but it's just basically like very poetic and sounds good, but not possible. And then I don't like this. It says, it will do for sentimental women, for tramps or lunatics. Yeah, they're okay. So like I said, there's a lot of gendered, it's not good. A lot of sexism. This is an old book. It was written in 1897. Freemasonry in general, from my experience of just like, what I have seen, as a very patriarchal, sexist field that I don't care for. I don't like it. Very distasteful. Very, very distasteful. More than distasteful. It's nauseating. So I don't like all this gendered, talking in terms of he and him and brother and perfect man and all that. It will do for sentimental women, tramps and lunatics. Oh my God. Like, seriously, really, you're going to put those like all together in one category? Anyway, yes. Disgusting. Very, very, and this is why we have to be very careful, right? We have to be really careful, because look, what I'm saying here is this book was written by someone who is apparently very enlightened, and obviously not so if one were to be writing in this way. Even if it was written in 1897, I don't care though. If you're someone who is claiming to have this, sort of consciousness, you shouldn't be talking this way, for one thing. And then if you look at the reason why I don't like to be too, you can tell that there is a lot of remnants of this in modern organizations that I don't like at all. I don't like it at all. From what I understand, modern masonry is still segregated. They have a, certain place for men, certain place for women. Don't like that at all. And I'm trying to. This is this sort of thing triggers me. Different thing. Religion triggers me. Sexism triggers me. Gender rights trigger me, and things like that. So I feel a rant bubbling up. But I'm trying to suppress it because I have spoken at length on this topic on other videos. So as long as you know that I don't like this and I condemn this, let's move on. So what is the meaning then and goal of human evolution? Turning now from the ethical side of the problem to the scientific, let's see what happens as the consciousness of man recounts from the lower animal self towards the spiritual soul, from the physical towards the higher plane. So let's take a closer look at this. Let's dissect this. Let's break this down. We have shown that mind to be connecting link between the upper triad and the lower quaternary. When man has once passed the plane of savagery in his evolution, mind becomes more and more apparent as the battleground of his evolution. So this is important. When man, or a person, has passed the plane of savagery in his evolution, mind becomes more and more apparent as the battleground of his evolution. He gradually relaxes tooth and claw, and first by instinct, then by cunning, and finally by... I just skipped 100 pages forward because this thing is really picky where I click. Hold on. So he gradually relaxes tooth and claw, and first by instinct, then by cunning, and finally by reason and design, pursues the struggle for existence. So what this is saying is that essentially evolution first occurs with blood and tooth and claw and fighting and savagery. But as evolution continues, the battlefield goes more and more from physical reality to the mind. So the dialectic, the process of the dialectic, this clash, moves more and more from a physical clash to the mental plane, where then it's a battle of ideas rather than, tooth and claw. And here's the thing is that humanity hasn't realized that it needs to do this. It's still stuck in this stage of survival. Hyperianism wants to bring humanity realize, hey, survival is done. We survived. There's no more dinosaurs. Well, no, not that. There's just... The point is, we got to these avatars, right? The evolution went through, so many different predators. There's the time of the dinosaurs and like all these different, bloody clashes. We went through all this. When I say we, I mean as in actually being incarnated or relocalizing in different avatars throughout all this. But eventually, we no longer have to be engaged in... I'm trying to put this... How do I say this? We reached human bodies evolved. Human bodies evolved. We now have these avatars that are capable of attaining self-awareness and attaining hyper-awareness. There's no longer this need to have a physical clash of survival. That was for the period of evolution when you have, predators and prey, this clash, to get us to the point to develop sophisticated enough avatars to be at this point. So we don't need to do that anymore. We have the avatars. Evolution and physical conflict has served its purpose. We're done with that. Humanity hasn't realized that. We're now at the level where we need to leave that mindset behind, leave survival mindset behind, step into self-awareness or hyper-awareness, and build a planetary civilization where instead of fighting with each other, we're helping each other. Wow, crazy idea, right? So instead of being at war with one another and trying to dominate each other and survive, everyone's trying to survive. Guess what, guys? If you'd stop killing each other, you wouldn't have to survive. You only need to survive because you keep killing each other. By the way, when I say guys, I use that as gender neutral, just FYI. Anyway, yeah, so it starts from tooth and claw, but goes more and more to mind. He changes continually his code of ethics, for he is continually compelled to compromise, and he finds that he can retain more by relinquishing a part. His very selfishness leads him to combine and cooperate with his fellows. At last, his sympathies expand. By and by, he learns that a fellow feeling makes us wondrous kind. He reciprocates and at last becomes generous. During all this long and weary struggle, his mind is enlarging and his consciousness expanding. Basically talking about everything that we've, sort of been discussing. you're having experiences, you're learning, you understand how reality works. He creates for himself a world of thought. It is unreal and unsatisfying because not so impermanent, and yet he struggles on. He reflects over his varied experiences, seeks causes, and discerns principles. Same thing, right? Running around, exploring, learning different things. And again, this is where Hyperionism brings it all into one place and gives you the tools. It's that university rather than having to figure all this out on one's own. He realizes the saying, "My mind to me a kingdom is. On earth there is nothing great but man. In man there is nothing great but mind." So on earth there is nothing great but man, and in man there is nothing great but mind. This is because man, or humanity, is the mind of the earth, right? So the purpose of the earth is to provide an environment for humanity to arise and for minds to localize. Without us here, a planet is useless. It's like an empty seed. A planet is a seed. I'm not going to get into the whole idea, but check out my video. I have a video on the purpose of planets, which talks about all this. Planets are seeds, and an empty seed is useless. So a planet without minds like us is useless. So on Earth, there's nothing great but humanity. And in humanity, there's nothing great but mind. So he realizes the saying, or the older saying, "All that I am is the result of what I have thought." Absolutely. Mind is like, so by evolution, man is continually climbing upwards to higher planes. His five senses are adjusted to observations and experiences of the physical plane, but he has other experiences. The senses are narrow and circumscribed, yet even these become refined. His tastes alter, his tendencies ascend. He is reaching outwards as his sympathies expand, and upwards as his ideals become higher. There is revealed to him a whole world of experience in which the lower senses play no part, a world of aspiration in which self is not the goal. Caveat there, self and collective is the goal. Nothing wrong with self being the goal as long as it doesn't interfere with other people's selves being the goal. We want to have a healthy self and collective feedback loop. Self being part of the goal is fine. You just don't want it to only be the self. The very physical bounds of self are loosening, expanding, disappearing. Hitherto, he has been conscious of flashes of intuition, of knowing things he has seemingly never learned. A lot of people who come to Hyperionism go like, wow, this is like, I've known all this before. It feels like I've known all this before. Plato said that all learning is actually remembering. So knowing things he seemingly has never learned. He sees inner meanings and senses subtler powers. The reason why one can do this, by the way, is because you are reality. So when you have these intuitions about what reality is, it's because reality is you. So you are just, bringing into consciousness what already is there because it is you. Everything is us. Everything is us. Someone's like, wow, this seems really familiar. It's because it's what is always there. You're just becoming conscious of it. Kind of like when, imagine an animal that has no sense of self is suddenly like, oh, wow, I'm a self. Well, you were always a self. You just realized it. It just took the realization. Same sort of thing here. We are all reality. We are all interconnected. We are all myriad reflections of one another. It's always been that way. It just takes that realization of going, oh, I know it now. Oh, I realize it now. Just like an animal that could somehow be like, oh, I am an individual entity separate from the environment, and the mirror reflection is me. It's not another being. So he sees inner meanings and senses subtler powers, not only in visions and intuitions of the day, but in dreams of the night. He has experiences beyond the bounds of sense. He learns the power of thought. By conquering self, his will becomes strong. I want to say something else too, though. Look, if you're not having these like super enlightened dreams or something, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't have to do that. Everyone is different, and people understand and become hyper aware in different ways. Just like, today, Some people have an inner monologue, some people don't. Some people have aphantasia, some people don't. Some people have, there are different neurotypes. Some people are better at math, some people are better at art. There's different people experience the world in different ways. Well, same sort of thing with hyper-awareness. Some people might have, super incredible dreams. Some might not, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with you. And a lot of these systems are kind of make it like, oh, you have to have this Damascus Road experience where like suddenly a blinding light takes you and you understand the secrets of existence. No, it's not like that. For some people it may be, but in general it's not like that. It's a learning. Like you go to school and you learn things start to click. It's not like you step into school and just suddenly, oh my God, I know all of mathematics and science. No, it's a gradual growth process. So if you're not having visions and whatnot, it's actually probably a good thing. All right, to be honest, if you're having visions constantly and uncontrollably, there's probably an issue. So he by subduing passions, his mind becomes clear. He has premonitions of coming events. So, I don't agree with all this sort of stuff. Some of it, yeah. But again, if you're not, you don't have to be having premonition of things. For all events and thoughts and things exist first on higher planes and are precipitated hence into matter. Kinda, depending on how one defines it. Not in the way they're describing it. In the way they're describing it, no. From a mathematical perspective, all that will be exists in potential and is being actualized. So that would be a whole nother video unto itself, but the answer to that is kind of yes and no. It's not really accurate to the way they're describing it, but there is a future trajectory that is being actualized moment by moment. Yes, that part of it is true. So as his senses and organs on the physical plane, that doesn't mean that you can suddenly tell the future though, because it would be like trying to predict. It's so incredibly complex that you can only have varying probabilities. He becomes clairaudient and clairvoyant. He has broken the bonds of self. See, like he becomes clairvoyant. Well, what do you mean by that? Like you're not going to be able to suddenly read people's minds. He has broken the bonds of self and now functions on higher planes. Yes, you function on higher planes of consciousness, yes, but higher planes of consciousness, depending on how one means that, just like self-awareness is a higher plane than say instinctual awareness, and hyper-awareness is a higher plane than self-awareness, but it's not like you're suddenly going to have this new reality that you can just switch over to and build your own little house there or something. Now, we will be able to do this well into the future when we start developing the ability to tune, when humanity as a whole starts to become hyper-aware and develop hyper-aware technology, and start investigating that ability to tune into different frequency domains. We'll be able to do that, yes, but not right now. That's for the future. It's interesting that VR is sort of anticipating that. VR is sort of kind of like a simulation of that, training wheels for that. So, as his senses and organs on the physical plane made him master there of brutes and of physical nature, even so on the higher plane, the senses and organs evolved by the same evolutionary law of experience and choice, making him on the higher plane master of men of higher nature. All the time he is evolving organs and functions and dealing with matter and force, just as experience and reflections taught him laws and processes of the physical plane, so his expanded and refined experience and intuitions teach him the laws of the higher planes. But, says the physiologist, on the physical plane, man has evolved physical organs which bring him in contact with nature on that plane. Even so, it is on all planes, for analogy is the key of interpretation, as above, so below. So deep within the recesses of the skull, lying at the base of the brain, is a curious little structure known as the pineal gland, which modern physiology assigns to it no function. Descartes called it the seat of the soul. In the average individual, it is small and apparently useless, though it is focalized position and symmetrical relations to the surrounding structures would seem to assign to it some very important office. It presents a different appearance in the very young and very old, and in the idiotic from that found in the prime of life, health, and vigor. It has been called the third eye. So let's actually save this for later. I think that that's something real quick I want to say with regard to the pineal gland. It's an open question as to the role that the pineal gland plays. Descartes did call it the seat of the soul, but Descartes' philosophy was false. Very interesting philosophy, and very, very interesting philosophy, and he got a lot of things right. But ultimately, Descartes' philosophy was a dualism. Reality isn't a dualism; it's a monism. He did call the pineal gland the seat of the soul. And I believe it's Dr. Straussman who believes that the pineal gland produces DMT at birth, at death, and during dreams. This has never been observed or anything like that. It's just speculation, just a theory that has no real any kind of experiment or evidence backing it up. There are other people in the psychedelic community, very intelligent people, who think that that's a lot of bunk, that the pineal gland has nothing to do with it. It's an open question as to whether it does or not. And that's something that we will want to research as we create a new world, in a teleocratic society, and we can start directing our resources instead of war and destruction and throwing billionaires up into space, and start directing our resources towards building a better world, giving people, free education and healthcare and universal housing and universal basic income. Another thing will be research into the nature of reality, and that will be one of the things, among many, many other things, mathematical nature of existence, psychedelic research, all sorts of things. One of the things we will want to investigate is if the pineal gland plays a role. But anyway, this is getting into a little bit different, because now we're talking about things like light, color, sound, vibration, and the all-seeing eye and things like this. So I think we will save that perhaps for next time, because today's topic was about the idea of the master. And so I hope you get a better understanding of it and see how Hyperianism is very different. Hyperianism is very different, but you can see some interesting things and that we can learn from this. And it's, some, or at least some interesting ideas. And I think sort of the main takeaways from this is to realize that it's not just about other, it's about self and other, doing so in a way where it's complementary and balanced, self and other. And really important too to understand that how usually this does take lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. But in Hyperianism is that life university that allows individuals to come here and get all this in one lifetime potentially. And a good friend of mine, very good friend of mine, told me that in ancient Egypt, where they would store, all the information, all the knowledge, it was called the House of Life. I think that's really, really cool. So Hyperianism is that House of Life. And big shout out to my friend for, that was really cool. This is that University of Life where, you don't have to go through that lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. It's here. We're not here to tell you what to think or what to do. We're not here to tell you to, listen to 526 hertz frequency 2 hours a day and, pray to the universe or whatever. We're here to give you the tools so that you can come to these realizations yourself. We don't want to just tell you what to think, because that's the complete opposite of what it's about. It's about becoming a free thinker and reaching a higher level of consciousness and really understanding. If someone can just repeat, it's not about just repeating facts. Someone could know or memorize everything about Hyperianism. But if it's just repeating words and not realizing what it actually means, then that's a failure. It's not about just a memorization of facts. It's about really knowing what it means and integrating it. And if you're not at that level yet, don't feel bad. Hyperianism is extremely advanced. It's the most advanced thing currently available on Earth. So if you're struggling with it and you don't really know what it means, and you're just at the point where you're kind of sort of just collecting facts, that's okay. That's okay. Don't feel bad about that. It's a long process. You're not going to get it all in a month or a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. It's a lifetime thing. So it takes a long time. But as long as you know that the ultimate goal is not just a memorization of facts, but to really integrate it, learn it, and understand it. And again, don't feel bad, because I think a lot of people have that tendency to be like, wow, this is so hard. I'm never going to get this. No, don't. You can do it. And everyone struggles with it at first. It's a difficult thing, but it's okay. And it's okay to struggle with it. Another thing that's important, I think, to take away from this is to realize that fact of what concept networking is. To see how, for example, they can be talking about this in this mystic book on Masonry written in 1897, when it's more or less what Maslow, the psychologist, is talking about in his hierarchy, the highest level, the level of transcendence, and regarding with self-actualization on a psychological level. So, most people would be like, they would never be able to say what psychology and Freemasonry have in common. Like, what? That's totally two different things. But you can see it's just talking about the same thing in different words, in different language. They're not completely the same. There's some difference. Maslow wasn't, thinking about lifetime after lifetime. So there's differences, but you can see that it's different perspectives on the same thing. Because there's just one truth. There's one way that reality is, and people who come close to that will interpret it in different ways. So concept networking is about seeing how everything connects. Seeing how mathematics connects with psychology, connects with physics, connects with mysticism, connects with sex, connects with art, connects. So that's when you start being able to see how math connects with sex and art, and I use that because those are sort of the most extremes, but once you start seeing how everything connects to everything, and everything is just a different perspective on one thing. Most people don't have that ability to use concept networking. They see reality is divided into different slices. Different categories that have nothing to do. Oh, well, there's science here, there's art here, there's, politics here, there's, physiology here, there's economics here. Everything connects to everything, and it's all just a different perspective on one thing. That's one major component of reaching hyper-awareness, that ability to have concept networking, to be able to take apparently disparate information and seeing how it connects to form a unified whole. That's one aspect. There's concept networking, metacognition, and phenomenological experience. So, yeah, and I think that's a good example here of seeing, Maslow's idea, who's a psychologist, and this idea of the perfect master in Freemasonry. I don't think, most people, I think, would think that that's kind of crazy. Most people wouldn't think that, like, the idea of the perfect master in Freemasonry would have anything to do with, Maslow and psychology. But it does. So, I hope you enjoyed this, my friends. I have a whole playlist on, if you enjoy this, there's a whole playlist on this. I'll have it pop up on the screen. If you should check it out. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do. It helps out a lot. It's just one little tap. It doesn't, take anything for you, but it helps out a lot, spreads this information around. So please do. And if you enjoy my work, please consider supporting on Patreon. If you feel like you've ever gotten something or learned something from my work, please consider supporting on Patreon. It helps out a lot. You'll see it pop up over here in just a minute. If you choose all the cheapest options, it's hardly, anything. It's like $5 a month if you choose everything, the cheapest options, I think. At least that's how it is at the time of this recording. You'll get access to our weekly live streams, our hidden Discord server, The Citadel. If you're a member of my Patreon when my new book comes out, if you're a member at that time, you'll get your name in the credits, and it's the best way to support my work. Big shout out to our top supporters on Patreon, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Michael, Angela, Maria, Jordy, Top of the World, and Zach. Everyone else, you're all awesome. Thank you very much.